Hey guys, it's Jan here. I've decided to make this video called How to Grow Your Binary Options Account because I know there are some of you who just don't mirror the results that we achieve in this group. And it may be because you don't have access to the signals at all times, or maybe you don't have the expiries available on some of the signals that gets posted throughout the day. The best way to maximize the probability of a profitable trading day is to first of all understand some basics when it comes to probabilities. You may have noticed that the traders in the FX Lounge group only post 3 signals per day. The reason for this is because the probability for the traders to get 2 OTMs in a row is 20%. These stats are taken from stats going back 6 months, not just from myself, but to other traders that I used to work with. The probability for the trader to get 1 ITM and 2 OTMs in the same session is 9%. The probability for a trader to get 2 ITMs and 1 OTM in one session is 60%. And then for a trader to get 3 ITMs in a row is 11%. So it's very obvious that the probability is quite high for the trader to end with a stat at the end of the week that is more or less equivalent to 2 ITMs and 1 OTM. And 2 ITMs and 1 OTM will give you a success rate of 67%. Based on this theory, we should get an average of 67% successful trades per week. Some weeks may be slightly higher and some slightly lower, but it will be close to the 67% mark, and we should consistently be producing those results. If you go onto the signals page and you scroll down to last week Friday, which was the 8th of January, you'll see that we've done 26 ITMs, 13 OTMs, which gives you 67%. There's only been 1 week this year so far, so we do need a bit more time to go by to give you an accurate stat, but it should be very close to the 67% mark. This week we've been very consistent, apart from Wednesday when we had 7 OTMs and 5 ITMs, which is a very unusual day. It's a very bad day to have 7 OTMs and 5 ITMs, but despite that we're still standing on 62%. So tomorrow, or today, because you will be watching this on Friday, the stats will hopefully pull us back to very close to the 67% mark. I know some of you are part of other trading groups, and you'll know that whether it's this group or any other, it's just not always possible to take the trader's signal. You may be in the middle of something, or you may be driving, and so on. The second issue is that you may not always have the expiry available on your platform, which makes it very difficult to mirror any group's results, no matter how good they are. Best way I know of to overcome this challenge is to not just enter any trade you see posted. If you can't follow every single trade, you then must have a system to help you succeed, or you'll just end up spinning your wheels. And I know that is the case with some of the members in this group. First of all, you start by looking at all the possible outcomes a trader can possibly have during a trading session. So let's have a look at it. And just to make things easier, I've decided to make a 1 stands for ITM and a 0 stands for OTM. So if you look at the screen, you'll see that there's a total of 7 possible outcomes when a trader posts. Okay, when a trader comes in for a session, 1 of 7 things is going to happen. Okay, so the first thing is he can get golden duck. He can have 2 OTMs. The second scenario is 1 ITM and then the last 2 is OTM, or he can have an OTM, ITM, and then finish off with another OTM. Or you can start off with an OTM and then end with 2 ITMs. You can start off with an ITM, OTM, ITM, 2 ITMs and an OTM, and then finally 3 ITMs in a row. Those are the 7 possible outcomes. Only that can happen. So that's very powerful information. With that information, we can actually decide when or which trade we want to take from a trader based on these probabilities. So knowing what we now know, it would make sense to only enter at times when the probability is high for success. So let's try and find out when exactly that would be. The highest probability for success based on what we just looked at is to enter a trade after a trader had a loss. The probability of success, according to the total number of possible outcomes, is 60%. So this is 60% or 60% of the time you will have a successful trade after the when you take a trade after the trader had a loss. So if we just look at the 7 possible outcomes again, you'll see that if the first scenario, if you take the one of the traders, there's 5 traders, so if trader number one, his first signal is an OTM, and you take the next trade, then that will be an OTM. So you will sit with an OTM in your account. In this second session, you'll see that the second trade was a loss. So if you took the third trade, then that trade would have been an OTM. So you would have had 2 losses based on this strategy, taking the trade after the loss. Or the third possible outcome, if the trade had a loss there and you took the next trade, you would have had an ITM. The next one, also an ITM, if you took the trade after the loss. And then the last one here, you also would have had an ITM if you took the trade after the OTM. So that gives you 3 ITMs and 2 OTMs, which is 60%. The second highest probability trade to take is the trader's very first trade. There's a 57% chance that the trader's very first trade will be a successful trade. So here's our game plan, okay? So here are the rules. You take the trader's very first trade. If that trade ends an OTM, you take the second trade because the probability for the second trade from the same trader to be a successful trade is quite high. So you take the second trade. However, if the first trade ends as an ITM, you're done for the day following that specific trader's signals, because the probability for the second trade from the same trader to be ITM as well is not as high. The challenge then is, if you're busy working and you see a signal popping up on your notifications, how do you know if the trader just started posting, or if it's the trader's second or the third trade for the day? Because you've not been following or watching the page all day long. Well, that's why I've decided that we are going to change the display of the actual signal. So this is what a signal typically looks like. Dollar Japanese yen, put 340, expiry 930. If that's all you see, then that would mean that it's the trader's very first signal for the day. Then that would mean if you see a 0 just underneath or after the expiry time, then that would mean that this is the trader's second trade and the previous trade was an OTM. So this would be a high probability trade and a trade that you most likely want to get into. So if you see nothing, you want to take the trade. If you see a 0, you want to take the trade. If you see a 1, you do not take the trade. Okay, so let's have a look and see how this strategy would have worked on Wednesday. Because on Wednesday, we had the worst day so far this year, with 7 OTMs and 5 ITMs. So let's have a look if we implement. Remember the rules. The rules are you take the trader's first trade and you also take a trader's trade after you had a loss, but only if you haven't traded from that trader before. Okay, so if you take a trader's first trade and it's an ITM, you are done with that trader for the day. You do not follow any more of his signals. You move on and you implement the same rules to the rest or the remainder of the traders to post for the day. So trader number 1, this is actually true. I actually just went through the Facebook stats and I wrote it down exactly as it happens. Okay, trader number 1, I actually posted first, but it doesn't really matter about the names and who posted first. But trader number 1, his first trade was an ITM, and then the last 2 were OTM. Then trader number 2, this is me actually, I had 2 ITMs and 2 OTMs. So my first trade was an ITM, the second one was an OTM, the third one was an ITM, and the fourth one was an OTM. Trader number 3 had 2 OTMs in a row, and then trader number 4 had 2 ITMs, and then the third one was an OTM. And then trader number 5 posted 1 signal, which turned out to be a not any. According to those rules, this is what your stats would have looked like if you followed those rules. So trader number 1, you would have had his first ITM, you would have taken his first trade, and you would have been done with that trader for the day. You would not have taken his second or his third trade, because the probability for a second ITM in a row is significantly lower. Trader number 2, which is me, you would have had another ITM because you take every single trader's first trade. So you would have taken my first trade and that would have been an ITM. Trader number 3 had 2 OTMs in a row and you would have had both those OTMs, because the first rule is you take the first trader's trade. If it's an OTM, you also take the second trade from that same trader. And then trader number 4, you would have had an ITM based on the trader's first signal. So you can see that If you only took the trader's first signals, you would have had 3 out of 4. But let's stick to the game plan, and you take the trader's first trade, and if it's an OTM, you also take the trader's second trade. So that resulted in that specific session, Wednesday, with the 7 OTMs and 5 ITMs. If you followed the rules of this strategy, you would have had 3 ITMs and 2 OTMs, which gives you a profitable 60% for the day. Now, to go back to this example, if trader number 3, and it's still a bad day, I mean, let's turn that into an ITM. You would have had then 6 OTMs, you would have had 6 ITMs and 6 OTMs. So it's equal, but as you know, in binary options, if you have a 50% success rate, you end up with a loss. But if you were following this strategy that I just showed you now, you would have had 4 ITMs and 1 OTM, which is an 80% success rate on a 50% day in the signals group. Okay, I hope you guys can see how powerful this is. If you follow this, you'll probably get about 70 to 80% of your trades working in your favor. Okay, it's just a discipline to stick to this rule. I always tell people just to go for 1 ITM a day. Okay, if you're really busy and you have to work, you can't always look at the charts and you can't always follow all the signals. I suggest you just go for 1 ITM a day. Okay, and but don't just follow any signal. Go for the highest probability signals, and you now know what a high probability signal is. You need to go for the trader's very first signal. If you OTM the first signal, you need to go for the second one. Okay, but the probability is very close to 60% for the very first trade to work anyway from any given trader. Okay, guys, I hope you've learned something here, and I would like you to go and implement this, and I would like to see some results. I really want you guys to be profitable in your trading. I really want to. I like to think that we are very transparent in our performances. We don't do turbos and all the other rubbish that other signal groups do in order to make up their stats. I mean, some of the signal groups, they post 75-80% performances for the week, but I think for those of you who are part of those signals groups will know that it's just not the case. Okay, they just don't, and they don't understand probabilities either. The fact that people post 5, 6, 7 trades, the probability for success seriously decreases. They simply don't understand the law of probabilities. So, okay, guys, please stick to these rules, and I really sincerely hope this makes a difference in your bottom line, and please keep me up to date with your performances. It will be great to get a message from you guys telling me that you're implementing the system and the difference it made in your trading account. Alright, guys, you'll be watching this just before my session, so I hope we have a fantastic day.